Self-sabotage is the act of either deliberate or unintentional obstructions and even complete retreats from productive and cultivating endeavors. What governs this major abomination of a personal catastrophe is fear. The fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of criticisms, the fear of self-realization, the fear of embarrassment, the fear of responsibility, the fear of not being good enough, the lot. We all know that personal growth requires us to successfully overcome certain trials, and with every trial there is always a certainty for struggle and frustration and the risks of bad luck, misfortunes, and coming up short. We absolutely despise that uncomfortable feeling when our egos are systematically and objectively challenged or deconstructed, as it feels like an interpersonal smackdown that vividly reveals to us the much less of a being than what we idealistically thought of and brought ourselves up to be. That is why we always try to find ways to avoid circumstances where there is a risk of our flaws, weaknesses, and deficiencies to be either exposed or reminded. And these quote-unquote ways are the instruments of self-sabotage. The most common ones are: the first one that we all are familiar and have been guilty of multiple times in our respective lives is procrastination. This is basically us trying to conjure up subjectively random and objectively unrelated excuses for ourselves about why we are unable to undertake and eventually complete our tasks. Usually in order to avoid or delay the unpleasant and unrefined feelings of struggle and the possibility of negligence, defeat, and inadequacy. If you gentlemen really want to see why most human beings are governed by their own emotions, this is the perfect example. The standard issue excuse for procrastination is the classic "I don't feel like doing it," or "I'm not in the right mood to do it," or "I'm not in the optimal headspace to do it." These usually occurs when we feel that the scale, magnitude, and sheer effort required to successfully and effectively complete the assigned tasks are seemingly too inconvenient, inappropriate, and unfavorable for us and our circumstances to handle and bear. And because of our natural fear for our own ego deconstruction or demolition through risking ourselves being unsuccessful with these tasks, we simply chose to either avoid it completely or most of the time, delay it indefinitely by distracting ourselves with short-term gratifications. And speaking of gratifications, the second one is excessive indulgence that turns into eventual grief addiction. Now, if you are already in deep commitment within a productive endeavor, there are always moments where you have to occasionally unwind, enjoy the fruits of your labor, and give yourselves a necessary break in order to restart and refresh your mentality for another period of intense focus before it eventually transforms into an unintentional tool of diminishing returns. And these moments of gratification are usually where you have to allow yourself to mitigate the potency of your self-governance and impulse control. However, as we all know, it is inevitable that we will become more allured to pleasure rather than pain. And because of this innate natural tendencies of ours, we can easily become unconsciously or indirectly carried away and completely undermine the cruciality for moderation when it comes to indulging ourselves. Whether it is food, women, or games you're indulging in, this is when we slowly become too comfortable and civilized for our own good, as we start to lose our sight of our responsibilities and slacken the grip of our accountability. We start to lose our edge for success and become full of prideful compromises and impatience as we carelessly rush to complete our tasks with scrappy integrity and loose intent. The mistakes, loose ends, and negligence that we're going to generate through that carelessness will shatter the competent and credible self-image that we've built for ourselves, and we become even more tempted to imminently exit the feeling of struggle or frustration of work and indulge or binge ourselves back into pleasurable appeasements, and even worse, substance abuse to hide and numb ourselves from the shame of failures. Grief addiction can also occur on its own, whereby a personal tragedy that occurs in our lives compels us to engage in an imminent chain sedation of pleasures or substances to desperately try to numb ourselves from the pain. This is what usually results in someone's gradual decay of competence or credibility and swift fall from grace. The third and final one is immediate conceit. This is basically giving up before we even start planning and doing anything that directly contributes to our growth in our chosen endeavors. Now, our reason for this is rather similar to what we conjure up when we procrastinate, only amplified and escalated into 11, where we procrastinate because the tasks ahead are seemingly too inconvenient for us. We immediately concede or drop everything because the tasks ahead are seemingly too much or too impossible for us to even consider of undertaking. This usually occurs because of several reasons, chief among which is because the end goal is too far or too immense for us to even process its plausible possibilities that we aren't even able to picture ourselves reaching it. Another reason is because we lack the self-confidence in our current and seemingly inadequate abilities, and also the self-belief in our potential to learn, acquire, and demonstrate further advanced abilities. And finally, we overemphasize the seemingly absolute and inevitable certainty of failure and eventual embarrassment due to the magnitude of the risks ahead. In the modern world, self-sabotage is arguably the main reason why so many of us are not where we want to be in life. And because we hate pointing fingers on ourselves and the horrible decisions we've made, we blame other people or the suboptimal and untimely condition of our circumstances to justify our cowardness and lack of results. We are always capable of so much more than what we estimate ourselves to be, and it is only a matter of having the courage to show up, giving it your all, and finding out for yourselves. Your suboptimal emotions and circumstances have absolutely no place or influence in the demand that your responsibilities and potential will ask from you. Only your commitment and dedication matters. There are no hacks or shortcuts to this. Show up and do the work, or stay where you are and suffer the misery of stagnation. You have to stop relying on how you feel in making objective decisions. Everything that you fear that may happen is all part of the journey. If they aren't, then everyone on this earth will have absolutely no issue of self-sabotaging themselves. You have to muster up the resolve to take the hits and endure them, as they will always exist when you step out of your comfort zone. Nothing worthwhile having in life is without risks or pain. You don't have to bother wondering or imagining how your story will end if you yourself are the author of your own miserable existence. Thank you for watching.